All right, everyone. I have a really cool guest with me today. Her name is Dr. Elizabeth, and she is, like me, just pushing through no matter what and getting things done and just, inspiring others to, like I talk about, do more and figure out what works for you. So, Dr. Elizabeth, please tell us who you are and how you spend most of your time.
Yeah. Well, thanks so much for having me, Nick. This is such a pleasure. My name is Dr. Elizabeth Wisniewski. I'm a certified perinatal chiropractor, and I also have a PhD in depth psychology with specialization in somatic studies. And I'm also a person with visual impairment, and I really emphasize person language first because being visually impaired does not define me or any part of my life. It's just a part of me, just like being a chiropractor is part of me. So that's who I am. And I practice in Ventura, California, as well as virtually. And I've been in practice almost 12 years as a chiropractor. And I got my second doctorate 2 years ago in 2022. And all my research is birth related, specifically the lived experience of cesarean birth from a cross cultural perspective. So I'm really passionate about everything birth.
That's amazing. And, that's something that I don't know much about. So, you know, but as far as your chiropractic career,
Mhm.
what's your favorite thing about that?
Well, you know what's so great about being a chiropractor is I don't actually need my eyes. And I tell my practice members, like, hey, I cannot physically see you. So if you're telling me about something, use directions like right or left. Don't just say like the pain's here or this problem's here.
Yep.
Use your words.
Yeah.
But I'm like, I don't need my eyes. I use my hands, my heart, and my third eye, which is really my sense of intuition. And so that
Hmm.
allowed me to have a lot of success as a chiropractor because it's such a hands-on career. And I was on the path to law school and then lost the rest of my eyesight after my 30th surgery when I was 21, turning 22, right when I had finished undergrad. So I really feel and know in my soul that losing my eyesight helped me gain a greater vision for myself and for what I'm doing and putting out into the world. So being a chiropractor is really important to me because it just isn't eyesight. It's so much more. It's my entire body, soma, soul, and psyche coming together to help others and facilitate their healing. I apologize. My Siberian Husky is behind me. His name is Jaya, and he's chewing a bone very excitedly right now.
It's all good. I have three cats, and sometimes they walk in front of my camera, sometimes they move my camera, so I totally understand.
Love it. They're all
So,
invited.
yeah. But you know what I love about your story is, being a chiropractor,
Mhm.
that's like your place to be you, where your vision impairment doesn't matter, and
Mhm.
you can just be you, and that's like it's like you don't like realize your disability, but I like to say different abilities at
Mhm.
that time, and that reminds me of my job. I've been driving garbage trucks for like 10 years now,
Mhm.
and when I'm behind the wheel, my disability goes away. Like I don't think about it; it's just gone. Like it's my place. It's what I do. It's for what I like doing. But yeah, that really resonated with me because it's just who you are. It's a part of who you are, just like you said.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And I used to be feel shame around it, but now being almost 12 years into practice and almost being 40, I feel a lot more confident. And I tell my new practice members at their first visit very clearly, like, I cannot see you. Like, and
Hmm.
like I mentioned earlier, I need like more description. And I really reassure them, like, it doesn't matter. And a lot of times they're like, oh, I bet your sense of touch is better. And it really truly is. And we know that in the science that if you lose a sense, your cells will migrate from one part of your brain to another part of your brain. So
Yeah.
those senses become more acute. And so we've proved that on functional MRI machines, but I know it in my body as well. My hearing so much better than most people, and definitely my palpation, my sense of touch is so keen. So it is really a perfect career for me.
That's for sure. That's for sure. And, I like to help people understand, different, I don't like the word disabilities, but it's what everybody understands. But different abilities, I like people to understand more. So, can you just tell us, a little bit about what it's like to be visually impaired and how you overcome your day to day?
Yeah, and I feel like my circumstance is unique because I wasn't born with any visual impairment. I
Yep.
could see, I lost my vision in my right eye when I was 14 and my left eye when I was turning 20, I was 21, turning 22. So I had a long time and I still remember what it's like to see. So
Hmm.
I dream in color, and there's days I wake up and part of me is so grateful that I just had this beautiful dream and the landscapes I saw in my dream time. And then I wake up and I'm like, oh, this is so frustrating. I can't do that anymore. And I want to say on the side before I go deeper into this that I've done a lot of therapy and somatic based therapy to be in relationship with this change in my life. So this is a practice and it's not perfect. I certainly have days where I'm like, this is terrible. I'm so frustrated. Like, give me 1 minute of sight back.
Yeah.
And, then I have to come back into relationship with it. So what's really interesting is just how technology has shifted. When I was in chiropractic school, I graduated in 2012. I still had to have advocates reach out to every single book publisher for every class. Then we had to buy the hard copy of the book. Then we had to request the book on CD. And then I'm stuck with all these books and the CDs. And then going to grad school, I started my MA to PhD program while practicing in 2016. So it's not like a big gap in there. Huge change with having my iPhone, and I can download all the books on Kindle or iBooks or wherever. I
Yep.
can, it reads PDFs. So now I have all my books just on my phone. That's a
Mhm.
really big difference for me. So there's free apps, one's called Seeing AI, and it's developed by visually impaired engineers at Microsoft. And it's
Cool.
not perfect, but it helps me a lot to read currency because American dollars are all look and feel the same,
Yep.
same size, shape, everything. It's very frustrating.
Yep.
But it has channels on it, so I use that a lot. And then, like I told you before we started, I have a personal assistant. I also have a virtual assistant, and I'll FaceTime my family members because I'll be like, wait, this is the blue one, right? And I have a system even, and my sister asked me a few years ago, like, how do you always match? How do your clothes always match? And I just have a system. If it's something that I buy that's black, I always put one slit in the tag with scissors. So I have a system because I am very independent of like, go, go, go. And I take lots of vitamins, so I have good memory. So I just kind of call on my other senses for texture. But even like my whole house and everything here, I've decorated it. And it's really from like embodied intuition of feeling into it and knowing and remembering what the colors look like and knowing what I want and what I want other people to observe. But then I add in, I usually have a fountain going behind me that I turned off for our interview. I always have good music, smells, like really embracing all my senses helps me feel grounded in my body and to stay like aware with my surroundings. And then to get around, I will use Lyft or Uber, have my assistant take me to appointments, things like that. And just, you have to, there's a humbling that comes in it too, of being like, hey, I need help. And so
Yep.
you're working on that to be in a place where you can ask. And then the biggest, hardest part, to receive the help, which is always a practice for me.
Exactly. We all struggle sometimes to ask for help. We get kind of stubborn, and I know I do it all the time. But like I've learned, throughout my life, like it's okay to ask for help. If you need help, ask for help. And people are always more than willing to give you a hand.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah,
Yeah.
that's incredible.
Yeah, absolutely. It's the asking and the receiving. Those are the hard parts. And then once you get through it, you're like, okay, I'm so glad I did that. That was really literally helpful. So,
Yep, exactly. Um, do you mind when people ask you about how it is to be visually impaired?
depends on my mood.
That's
To be
great.
really honest. Most of the time I'm open to it. It's hard in practice because the patient's there for me to take care of them, and
Mhm.
I don't want them to ever feel like they're have to caretake me. But then they're so curious, and so it's great because then I can point them to like this podcast interview, and I'm like, oh, I've actually have some stuff recorded on this. So if you want to know more, listen to this or read this article I published. Because it comes up all day, every day, and that's really taxing on me emotionally, mentally, physically, spiritually. Um, Most of the time, I'm open to it because I know people typically are coming from a place of just curiosity, and people express to me like, I just don't know if I could do that, and it's like, well, I didn't really have a choice. um, so yes and no, and sometimes. That's a hard question.
Yeah, no, I get it, and I'm kind of the same way. So,
Yeah.
but I am gonna ask you probably the question you get the most is what does it look like? Since you're someone that you could see before, you remember,
Mhm.
what would
Mhm.
you like be able to compare it to?
Okay, well, what's so interesting to me that a lot of people don't know is, it's not just like I don't have just blackness when I'm looking out of my eyes.
Okay.
If I'm outside, I can still perceive quite a bit of light, especially in my left eye,
Hmm.
because I just have a lot of silicone oil in there replacing the vitreous humor, which is the gel layer in your eye. And that they did to keep my retinas flat because my retinas were detaching as part of my rare eye disease.
Okay.
Um, So I see a lot of colors and it's really nebulous. It's like looking at the cosmos where there's like all these swirls and colors and everything. Um, so that's one of the biggest things. But what's really also challenging about that is those colors and lights don't go away if my eyes are open or closed. So if
Okay.
I'm really tired, my retinas actually react and like produce, there's like a white light neurologically produced. And
Hmm.
honestly, like the first time it happened, I thought I was dying because it was a bright white light that didn't go away when my eyes were open and closed. And I'm like, do I move towards this light? Like, what is this? And I met with my retina specialist back in Michigan, and they were just saying, like, that's just your retinas reacting. They think they're perceiving something. So when I get really tired, that happens, which really makes it worse because then it's harder to sleep. And the
Yeah.
light that's produced is so bright that it's painful. Like I feel it in my body where it's like it hurts me almost. The other thing that happens with me that I don't tell a lot of people about, just my like inner circle knows, is I live with a lot of physical pain. And you think about like getting your teeth worked on, like it's hard to get away from that kind of pain when it's in your face.
Yep.
And so when the pressure, the barometric pressure drops if there's a storm over here on the ocean, or if I'm back home in Michigan, it comes across Lake Michigan. I
Hmm.
really have a hard time with low eye pressure. Glaucoma is kind of the opposite, high eye pressure. Um, so when my eye pressure is low, I get really extreme headaches that sometimes are migraines, and then I have a constant pressure in my face pretty consistently. I've learned to just deal with it, I guess, and don't notice it as much unless it gets really bad. So those are some of the things that like are really present for me.
Well, I'm sorry that you guys deal with that pain. But I want to thank you for sharing that because you know I had no idea that it was like that. Like you can basically see colors at times, and then
Mm-hmm.
unfortunately the bright light that's you know not cool. But
Yeah.
you know, thank you. So we understand more what it's like to be you or be somewhere else. Just it really helps people just to understand what you go through and empathize with you more. It's just going to help a lot of people. So thank you so much.
My pleasure. I mean, I feel, when I'm in a safe environment, I'm really open to sharing, and you certainly provide that audience or that environment for your audience and for me right now. So I'm really grateful for this opportunity to express this.
Well, thank you for saying that. That's what I'm here for. I care about my guests. I care about what you go through, and you know, everybody's curious of what it's like. So that's why I share my story. My guests share theirs. It's just help people understand, and I think that's going to go far, just to help all of us who have different abilities.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. Those varying abilities or those differing abilities, as you say. I think that's beautiful because we don't need to be labeled as disabled. It's really
Yeah,
like that person centered, like you're a person first, we're all people. So it's really honor and step into that personhood rather than being labeled by just a small part of ourselves or our lived experience.
exactly. So, I got one last question for you,
Sure.
and that is, so I have a slogan, and it is, "Your abilities are infinite." What does that mean to you?
I mean, my first response is yes, yes, they are. I don't think anything should ever slow anyone down. I had a patient the other day who was like, I'm limited here with this range of motion in my shoulder. I'm limited, limited, limited. And I rarely will do something like this as a doctor, but I put my finger on her head and go, your limitations here. And I tapped on her head. And that's what it is. And she got it, it clicked. And
Yep.
so that's, we are infinite and we can do anything. Anyone can. And,
Mhm.
I'm not any more special than anyone else getting 2 doctorate degrees. I was just really determined and had resourcefulness. And I told you beforehand, my parents were both in special education. My mom was a special ed teacher. My dad became an administrator and professor of special ed. So I really knew how to advocate for myself. And that really helped me. So, tapping into your resources in your city, in your state, federally, whatever it may be, and using them, that's that asking for help, because you never know, they might pay for your school. You might
Yep.
have all these resources you're not aware of that can be really helpful to help you reach beyond your potential, because it is infinite and we can all do anything we put our minds to, our body, mind to.
Yep, exactly. I love your answer, and I ask that on every episode, and the answer's always different. It's always unique. It's always personal, and I just love that because the cool thing about my slogan is it's infinite. There's infinite possibilities with what it means to somebody else. So I just love that.
Absolutely, I love that too.
So thank you. So, how can people find you if you want to be found?
You can find me. My Instagram, my business Instagram is the best place. It's Dr. Elizabeth Wisniewski. Just my full name like that.
Yep.
I can send it to you to put in your show notes, but that's a
Yep.
great way to find place to find me. You're welcome to DM me. A lot of my content is perinatal, so just anything around birth, but also just a lot of health, wellness, holistic health and healing in there. So it kind of runs the gamut, but please connect with me there.
Awesome. Sounds good. And yep, I will put everything in the show notes.
Beautiful. Thank you so much for having me